to liberate education from the monopoly of schooling, a world without schools. School monopolized the possibilities of education in the same way that the church dominated the spiritual life. School has also led to the reproduction of inequality. School perpetuates existing social and economic inequalities by prioritizing values and skills favored by the ruling class. Thus, it reinforces the subordinate position of working class students. School functions as a tool for ideological control, shapes students' beliefs and values that align with the dominant ideology, and it often marginalizes alternative perspectives. Moreover, school has also led to the instrumentalization of knowledge. Knowledge is commodified for economic productivity, neglecting personal development and critical engagement. Moreover, school also reinforces a kind of a hidden curriculum. Beside the explicit curriculum, formal education also transmits an implicit or hidden curriculum, which involves transmission of values or norms or social behaviors that support the existing power structures. For instance, through this hidden curriculum, school may promote obedience or punctuality and respect for authority figures. All of this will be discussed step by step. So, the first, this passage that you see is from Ivan Illich's books about Deschooling Society, Why We Must Disestablish School. And his argument goes forth. Many students, especially those who are poor, intuitively know what the schools do for them. They school them to confuse process and substance. Once these become blurred, a new logic is assumed. The more treatment there is, the better are the results, or escalation leads to success. The pupil is thereby schooled to confuse teaching with learning, grade advancement with education, a diploma with competence, and fluency with the ability to say something new. His imagination is therefore schooled to accept service in place of value. Medical treatment is mistaken for healthcare, social work for the improvement of a community life, police protection for safety, military poise for national security, the rat race for productive work. In short, what he is trying to say in all of this, in most of his arguments, it is that in our society, education is often synonymous with formal schooling. Right? This is the norm. This this norm, this behavior, this mode of thinking again has been naturalized by the schooling process. That education is often synonymous with formal schooling, where students follow a predetermined curriculum and are confined within the walls of a classroom. Right? This is not the only way. To discourage schooling does not discourage education. Right? So one should not be confused with the other, and we must not let so this blurring, once these lines, these things become blurred, a new logic is assumed, of course, right? So process and substance are two different things. Moving forward, schooling, especially traditional schooling, has led to infinite meaninglessness. Those in the dominant domain, they need harmless electorate. They mindless consumers, and both of these things lead to alienation that is felt by the students ever so deeply. Again, education can lead to alienation and limited intellectual development because school often prioritize rote memorization and standardized testing. So a harmless electorate, mindless consumer. So they don't want the student to be more critical because it will lead to a harmful electorate, right? They won't vote for them anymore. And mindless consumer, if a mindful consumer, they won't buy their things, right? They won't buy the shit that they sell in the market or in all of these shops, so brands. So again, university started as a single community, a community of masters and students. right? So the existence, the ontology of university is, it has this argument, it has this logic that it is a community of masters and students. So teachers, professors, they are considered as masters, right, and students as slaves. So again, Francisco Ferrer, I love this quote. Rulers have always taken care to control the education of the people. I mean, why wouldn't they? So, I mean, again, going back to Antonio Gramsci, right? Why won't they be interested in the ideological control? How else would they indoctrinate and shape students' beliefs and values, right? It is only possible through schooling, because schools teach a version of history and social studies, right? They highlight the achievement and perspectives of the ruling class, right? And it marginalizes or omit the struggles and contributions of marginalized groups or alternative ideologies. So when we try to learn about philosophy, one way of starting is to study world philosophy, but we often focus on Western philosophers. It is not so that the East has not produced philosophers or intellectuals, but it is just because they want their mode of education, their mode of history, their so whatever values and their values. So again, they are really interested to control the education of the people. They know their power is based almost entirely on the school, and they insist on retaining their monopoly, right? The school is an instrument for domination in the hands of the ruling class. So again, it's pretty self-evident. Factory, colony, university. One must read Foucault's interpretation of school. School again is functions similarly to prisons. So if you look at most of schools and the structure of the prisons, you would see many common things, commonalities. University is a knowledge factory, a think tank spending capital, a colony in the service of empire, a site of social control. So it is a knowledge factory, right? Knowledge is commodified. Again, Marxists, they try to talk about, when they talk about instrumentalization of knowledge, they talk about this knowledge factory. Vocational training programs in schools are often designed to equip students with specific skills required for the labor market. So whatever is important for the market, considered a person, why is being a doctor or engineer or a bureaucrat or a lawyer, all of these, or even a business person, right? They are very hot professions because the market needs them, right? They are favored by the market. And if you look at how many funds and grants are received by universities from foreign or even in the national corporations or national institutions, you will find that the science, the national science students receive more scholarships, more grants, more funds, because they provide value to the market, right? And they have even tried to disestablish the humanities in most of universities in US especially. So university is a knowledge factory, a think tank expanding capital, right? It's just to produce more money, more capital for the colony, right? For the elite, so they can perpetuate their dominance ever so more. Yeah, I know, huge texts, right? I won't be reading all of them. You can read them by yourself, but I'll just read the first lines. And brilliant books. If anyone is interested, I can send him the book. The first task of public education is, in a capitalist society, is to teach students to respect authority. Right. This is done by placing the teacher or school bureaucrat in the role of a student's parent or guardian, the authoritarian figure they are familiar with at home. So at home we have father, in school we have teachers, in church we have priests, right? In government we have prime ministers, we have presidents, in army we have generals, right? And in religion we have gods. So the parental figures, right? The authority figures. Yeah. So Authority is imposed through a system of punishment for those who do not do what they are told, and rewards for conformity. Of course, punishment, right? Laws, rules, regulations. Strict adherence to stupid and trivial rules, like always walking on the right side of the hallway, teaches to obey no matter how stupid the order is. I remember back in school, we would be asked to, to keep in line, to always be, wherever we were supposed to go, we had to go in line, right, and discipline our movement. There's a great painting by Vincent van Gogh, right? Most of the prisoners are walking in circles. So we are taught that people should be able to tell us what to do. Again, pretty evident. The second task of public education in a capitalist society is to rob us of our individuality, so that we will submit to what we are told to do and not pressure our own ideas, desire, or talents. Right? Anyone who does not go along, right, they are scorned, and through peer pressure, right, through students' internal structure, they are tried to, innocent children are trained to value mediocrity and obedience. The third task of public education in a capitalist society is regimentation. So these three philosophers and writers and anthropologists, sociologists, Frederick Taylor, Henry Ford, and Max Weber. So if you look at what they have done, Taylor had the idea of reducing the worker's motion to that of a machine, so that capitalists could maximize their profit in any given time period. So why would they ask you to always walk in line, right? To make you work like a machine, so that you can maximize the profit. And because you're not going zigzag, your energy is not wasted, it's spent productively. Weber helped construct the modern bureaucracy in Nazi Germany to control large numbers of people with militaristic organizations, right? So, and again, concepts like time is money, and even in the service industry or other areas of work as outside the factory, these same principles of organization apply in varying degrees. The public school system education conditions students to conform their desire to a strict schedule by imposing punishment for those who don't know. Show up at school on time, go to class on time, or complete assigned task on time. So again, punishment for those who disobey, and rewards, and things for good things for those who obey. The fourth task of public education and capitalism is to discourage dissent. This begins with the system by which our performance at school is evaluated. We are repeatedly graded based on our ability to repeat facts, figures, and phrases regardless of where we understand their meaning. So rote memorization does not inculcate critical thinking, right? And therefore discourage dissent. So, yeah. The fifth task of public education in capitalist society is to encourage selfishness. This is done by forcing students to compete with each other, especially during exam time, right? Education and learning is a collective process, right? It's a becoming, it's not being, it's ever learning, ever trying to come up with reading books, having discussions. It's a lifelong process, right? But again, selfishness, knowledge is again individualized, and The selective function, this refers not to human choice at all, but to Darwin's theory of natural selection. In short, the idea is to help things along by consciously attempting to improve the breeding stock. Schools are meant to take the unfit with poor grades, remedial placement, and other punishment. Again, those who follow, those who become sheepish, they are rewarded. Those who do not, they are rewarded with poor grades and remedial placement and other punishment. They detain you, they struck you off, right? And they do lots of bad things to you, believe me. And wash the dirt down the drain. So if anyone has read Chomsky, so wash the dirt down the drain. They filter out, right? Anyone who is threatening to their authority, they are threatened. They filter them out, right? They struck them outside of school. So go along on your way. Answers have removed the need to ask questions. We have become a nation of children, happy to surrender our judgments and our wills to political exhortations and commercial blandishments that would insult actual adults. We buy television and then we buy the things we see on the television. We buy computers and then we buy the things we see on the computer. So again, no criticality, right? And all of this is the effect and the after effects, the aftershocks of schooling. Moving on, again, this is not the best of all worlds imaginable. This should be kept in mind, right? There are other ways, there are other possibilities, and inverse of formal schooling is possible. Self-motivated learning, imagining other worlds, other alternatives, other possibilities, right? Imagine an environment, just to give you a short example, imagine an environment, right, that is not confined in strict walls of this classroom. It's an open place where one can breathe decently and freely, and there are things which are not, and education, again, it's free, and it's all of the things that one needs, right, books and laboratories and tools, right, for practical education and for theoretical. All of this is happening, a community-based learning. Not just the teacher is not the only one who is disseminating information, but all of this information is discussed with all people, with all of different with different perspectives. So it can happen and again. This is not utopian. Shantiniketan, if anyone is familiarized, it was a free school, and it was not a school. Calling it a school would be doing it harm, but it was a place of Rabindranath Tagore, his father. He built it for him and for our poet, Pashto poet Gani Khan, went there and he learned there. So it was a person would be doing whatever he wanted to do, right? It was a kind of self-education, and it encouraged individuals to take control of their own education, right, by actively seeking out resources, books, and materials. So in in the first hour, Ghani Khan would go and take poetry lesson. In the second hour, he'd come and he would make sculptures, and then he would do some paintings, and then he would go out, take some music lessons, and then he would have some discussion with his schoolmates and with teachers, and there were no grades and no exams, of course, right? And so this went on, and learning was for the learning's sake, not for degrees and not for all of those external factors. Again, this schooling work challenges the conventional notion of careers. So, and again, in one of the movie that I watched, they say that career is 21st century invention, right? People in the in historical times, they did not have a career, and if you read about all the presidents of the United States, or Muslim scientists, or even pre 16th century, or say even 17th century, you can find all the, Vincent Van Gogh or Da Vinci, or I'm forgetting names, but you get the idea, right? All of them did not go to school. They learned what they learned, casually, slowly, and in his own way, right? In his or her own way. So, again, school, synonymous with prison. So, the authoritarian structure, dress code, we have emphasis on silence and order, we have negative reinforcement, punishment, walking in lines, loss of individual autonomy, abridged freedoms, no input in decision making, set time forced for walking, eating. So no input in decision making, right? We have no such thing as a curriculum. We do not have a say in what kind of books can we read, and we don't have a say in that. We do not have a say in the education for which we are paying for. So that's the coolest thing. Right. So moving on. Against Michel Foucault, love him. Schools serve the same social function as prisons and mental institutions, to define, classify, control, and regulate people. So you can look at this picture, right? Yeah, defining, classifying, controlling, and regulating people, right? Regulating. Right. Okay. So our schools are factories in which the raw materials are to be shaped and fashioned into products to meet the various demands of life. The specification for manufacturing comes from the demands of the market, and it is the business of schools to build its pupils to the specifications laid down. I mean, no comments necessary. You get the idea. And again, I'm now repeating myself, right? Absurdum. Now for the good news. So once you understand the logic behind modern schooling, its tricks and traps are fairly easy to avoid. School trains children to be employers and consumers. Teach your own to be leaders and adventurers. School trains education to obey reflexively. Teach your own to think critically and independently. Well, school kids have a low threshold for boredom. Help your own to develop an inner life so that they will never be bored. You can try all of these things, right? And asking questions. Most teachers do not tolerate questions, but ask your students to question. Modern scientific study masquerades in intellectual knowledge, which it is not. Real knowledge has to be learned by heart and painful thinking. It is not. Education is not the end product of an exam, right? Once you give an exam, you get the education, or not the end process. It does not even have an end, right? So real knowledge is earned only by ceaseless questioning of yourself and others, and by the labor of independent verification. You can't buy it from a government agent. You can buy it from anyone, right? A social worker, a psychologist, a licensed specialist, or a school teacher, all right? I mean, there are people who are, like guerrilla fighters and revolutionary fighters who are fighting for that ideal, right? One can learn a lot from them. If anyone is interested, they can read, the Zapatista movement, and right, and then there is the Kurdish movement that is happening, and study even our own PTM, right? Pashtun Tehreek movement. So, again, an education that is anti-capitalist, anti-colonialist, anti-imperialistic, and that is, women empowerment. It includes women empowerment. It includes the marginalized voices, right? There's one great essay, why we must abolish, the English department. So, in that essay, the writer talks about reading about our own literature rather than their literature. The university as a capitalist institution. What is the nature of universities at the beginning of the 21st century? University is not a developmental site of universalizing thought for the benefit of the human species. It's not the seat of learning, a place of intellectual self-enrichment. It is a social institution that is inevitably shaped by the nature of the society in which it exists. So in a capitalist society, university is necessarily a capitalist institution, right? And there are many ways in which the university resembles a capitalist enterprise. Education has become a commodity sold to students who have become consumers of this commodity. University employs academic staff to produce the commodity itself to students. Thus, the imperative of cost-cutting and profitability, which are endemic to the corporation of any capitalist enterprise, also affects the university. Hence, the closure and amalgamation of departments, reduction of staff, increasing use of associate tutors, fewer contact hours, cuts in library staff and resources. And again, it's not, the blame should not be on the particular vice chancellor. Right? They're all function this way because of the capitalist enterprise. And again, research is another dimension in which the university is being run as a capitalist enterprise. We've talked about this already, right? Universities are research-driven. Kaiser's University is a great capitalist side, right? The science and technology being developed at university has accordingly to be seen as capitalist science and technology, right? They are working for them, not for themselves or for us. So this is all. I hope that you have liked this, and if you have any more questions, you can ask me. Again, I'll end by this quote. School is the advertising agency which makes you believe that you need the society as it is. And once you accept the need for schools, you become prey to accept other institutions as well. It leads to depoliticization of students. So always ask, always question, and speak truth to power. Red revolution or whatever.